Welcome to AstroLyrical, the podcast where music meets astrology, where I, Liana Bassior, scope out the hidden astrology of up-and-coming musical artists and discover how the stars show up in their music, songs, and lyrics.
You guys.
You guys.
Did you watch the intro of
the newest one?
The newest, because in the intro episode we actually started with you guys.
Oh, that's adorable. I didn't watch it yet.
You just knew?
I just felt it.
Oh my God. Well, you guys, we're back with a third episode of AstroLyrical. As always, I say I'm excited every time, but the truth is because I am. This is like such a fun thing to get to do, to meet so many different artists, to talk about their charts and just get into their music. So I'm very excited to introduce MaryLeigh Roohan. She's a musician and songwriter who resonates to alternative pop with a sad indie edge. She's an Aquarius sun, a Virgo moon, and an Aquarius rising. And we've actually started to attach the charts of our musicians to our Instagram. So you can follow along. You can look at the Instagram and see the chart while you listen to the episode to see what we're talking about. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so vulnerable.
I know it is. I know.
But so cool. I thought the concept of your show was awesome, and listening to some of the episodes from the first season was really fun.
I'm really glad you liked it and resonated to it. And I agree. Looking at your chart is very vulnerable. And looking at it in a podcast setting is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is why I appreciate all the artists who have come on and been vulnerable with me and talked about things about their chart, which, every chart has its ups and downs. Every chart, I believe, has a story to tell. And my astrologer always told me, and I believe this too, that we choose the chart. We choose it. It's our choice.
Yeah. We are like, go.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're like, okay, ready, set, be born. Like we choose the parents, we choose the siblings if we have siblings, we choose the time, we choose the place, we choose the culture. Like, and some of that is based on like what is around us, like how our parents decide to raise us. But if you believe that we choose that stuff, then you got to believe that there's a karmic path and connection with the people that are around that. Do you believe in that?
I can get down with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like something that I'm like, I think grounding myself in on a daily basis, but I'm like, yeah,
you like
that works for me.
Right.
In this conversation, I'm like, all right, cool.
Cool. You're like, I like that. And that's what I appreciate about, because as I was saying in the intro, you are an Aquarius sun. And, there's a lot to talk about with your chart. But let's start with the basics. And I, of course, want to hear about all your music. And we're going to talk about all that. But just to start, being an Aquarius sun, what I love about that is that Aquariuses can have a perspective where they can be objective. And not like they can be intellectual and be like, yeah, I get that. Like what you were saying. And that's why it popped up. Just to start with the basics of like, yeah, you're an Aquarius sun. Like it makes sense that you can be objective about things and maybe some things work for you and some things don't, but you could see how it might work for others and maybe work for you in some context. Yeah,
totally. I feel like for me, maybe objective is a great word. I feel like I have an ability to kind of see something from all sides, which I really like. And that's been helpful.
Well, and that's what I love. I think every chart is beautiful. And that's
but mine's special.
But yours is really special. It's like a child. Like every child is beautiful, but also your child is great. But that's what I love about your chart is that you do have this like intellectual objectivity of the Aquarius and someone that can see things from different sides and different perspectives, which I do believe is an air sign quality, which Aquarius is an air sign, as well as Libra and Gemini. But I love that about your chart. You have these aspects like the Aquarius rising and the Aquarius sun that are very objective. And they're very like, great. Like, and I think Aquarius people, and I speak as a person who has an Aquarius North Node. If you've listened before, I've talked about this. But I love that thing of being like, you know what? It works for me. And like, it doesn't have to really work for everyone else, And I appreciate that. But at the same time, what's so interesting about your chart is that you have these elements that are very like, yeah, I'm me, I'm original, I'm myself. I'm not going to pretend to be anyone else for anyone. And that's really great. And then it's interesting because where you have this Aquarius energy and where you also have a lot of Capricorn energy in your other planets is in the 12th house.
Yeah.
Which is the Pisces house.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, I love a Pisces.
I love a Pisces too. And you know what? It's really fun. You and I, we have a similarity. We both have Venus in Pisces.
Oh, it's the best.
It's the best. It's also the worst.
Why is it the worst?
Well, I think, and what is interesting about your chart is, again, like all this objectivity and like, yeah, like I can think for myself and it's great. And then when things are in Pisces or the 12th house or ruled by Neptune, like if you have Neptune in a very significant place, which rules Pisces and the 12th house.
So you're saying it's significant for me.
It's very significant.
So you're saying,
the point,
listen up.
Listen up. This is a highlight moment because not only do you have your sun, your Saturn, your North Node, and your Mercury all in the 12th house, which is the Pisces house. But you have
it's so heavy over there.
That's is a big energy in the 12th.
Yeah.
Which if you guys, I know we've talked about the houses a little bit in other episodes, but just to recap, the 12th house is all about it's the Pisces house. So it's really about spirituality. It's about faith. It's about intuition. It's about channeling. And it's really beautiful because it connects to everything around us. It is the highest mind out of everything, out of all the signs and out of all the houses. And yet, sometimes what's hard about a Pisces or a Pisces, 12th house or Neptune is that it becomes so immersed with everything around it that it has a hard time finding itself, And that's what is interesting about your chart is that there's elements where you're like, yeah, this is me, like I am who I am and I'm not going to try to be different. Like, this is me. And then the Pisces elements and all those planets in the 12th house, which I think contribute so much to being an artist and being a musician, because most of the people we talk to on this podcast have a lot in Pisces or 12th house.
No way.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people have some significant element in Pisces because that is a sign that channels. That is a sign that can tap into whatever else is going on and get downloads. And I was curious if that is something that happens to you.
It's funny that you use like that word specifically, like to channel, because I think sometimes, as a musician or whatever, people will ask me about like my process of writing and stuff. And I feel like when I was younger, like in my early 20s or like late teens, it didn't feel like I was writing the songs. Like it did feel like something urgently needed to be expressed, and I was just in the right place and time to do it.
You were the person.
Yeah,
it was just meant to do it.
Yeah, it was just kind of like it doesn't. There are some songs that I have like really meticulously Virgo moon labored over and like crafted, and that is is something I really enjoy doing as well. But there are songs that don't have a process beyond just like being at the instrument and letting it come through, which is spooky.
It's really spooky. I know. And that's the thing is that when you find, we were talking about this last episode with Ren, like when you find that thing that feels like your passion and it feels like this feels right. It's like sometimes you have to work for it. Like you're saying, like sometimes you have to work and craft, but sometimes it just comes. And like when things just come to you, you're like, I'm not fighting this. I'm not going to I'm going to allow this to come through.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about a lot of things. And I think that for me, that happened. Once I opened myself up to getting more into astrology, it started happening more. where I would just start doing a reading. And, you know, I have my superstition things. Like I have to light that candle. I have to.
Yeah.
And I always ask the candle. It's an astrology candle from House of Intuition. So shout out to them if you guys want to sponsor us. But what it does is I ask the candle, I say, please allow me to channel in what I need to tell this person.
Yeah.
Because I believe that, not to sound all egotistical, but I believe that's like part of what I'm here to do is, I hope, help people.
Yeah.
And that's what I think musicians do a lot of times too, is like, I feel a calling. I feel connection to my music, my feelings, my emotions. And I hope that by writing these things, it can connect to other people and like lift them up too.
Oof.
Whew.
Yeah.
Man, gets deep right away. I know. We haven't even gone into like all the other stuff, but I think the point of saying all that is that you have this interesting combination. Virgo moon, like you said, very detailed, very meticulous, very like planning and strategizing and organizing and all those things. So that's part of you too. Yeah. And then the Aquarius is like, yeah, objective, intellectual, thinking things out, problem solving. It's more of that, like, you know, it's not as the emotional flow, but then you've got all this other stuff that's flowing. You've got that Venus in Pisces. Hey. You've got all the 12th house energy. And that's where I believe a lot of your, like you were saying, like your music, your gifts, your feeling, like that it's pouring in, which is beautiful. But what can happen is sometimes you get so lost in everything else. And like, I always think of Pisces energy as like fog. Sometimes you take an energy, it's all around you. You don't really know what's yours and what's other people's.
Yeah, it can get pretty confusing up here for sure. But what's coming up for me right now that I think is really interesting is like in the vein of like channeling or whatever, some of my songs have felt like premonitions for myself.
Wow.
That like in the stew of everything, it's hard for me to like objectively look around and like be like, okay, and this is where I am, and I know what the next step is because I can see clearly through this fog. Cannot.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I've written songs and then like looked back and been like, oh,
how did I know?
How did I know, or how did I not know at the time? And just kind of like that question now to me, I'm like, you don't need to ask that. It's like, you know, as soon as you can know.
Like, yeah, with Pisces energy, do you feel like you're pretty connected to your intuition? And how do you feel? Like, do you trust your intuition when you get that?
That's a good question. I feel like maybe this relates more to just like what you were saying about I know who I am and like I'm cool with that. I feel like living inauthentically has just become so much more intolerable, that there's like a level of intuition that sort of just naturally kind of aligns the more I've been kind of moving towards authenticity. So I want to say yes, but also like my brain can really get in the way and be like, wait, are we sure?
I know.
You know?
I know. It's that freaking Venus and Pisces. I deal with
Is
the
that
same
her?
thing. It's her.
Oh well, my God.
I know. She's a devil. No, but it's also because you have Mercury in the 12th house. So it's almost like, kind of like you have a Mercury in Pisces, but it's actually in Capricorn. You actually have your Mercury in Capricorn.
Yes.
Which is very pragmatic, actually. And that's what's, again, very interesting about your chart. There's this flow, there's this intuition, there's this like dreaminess, this like ethereal quality.
Yeah.
But then there's also the other part, which is like pragmatic and strategic and, you know, what is it? The left brain, like more like clear cut and structured.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to find structure within a fog.
Mm-hmm.
Which can be confusing. But I think that Mercury and Capricorn can be hard sometimes to find clarity in because it does feel a little foggy. It does feel like, do I trust myself? And I go through that too with the Venus and Pisces, especially in relationships. Trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, that you know what's right and you know what's good for you. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's what works for you. But when you have those Piscean qualities, it can be really easy to get influenced by other people and by other things, even if they just want the best for you.
Sure.
So it's definitely an interesting quality that I think has a lot of beautiful aspects to it, and has a lot of challenging aspects to it. And again, this is coming from a person that understands that. And that's why I think I like fell in love with your music so much. Was because I think I connected to that Venus and Pisces element, you know, and all the rest of you is in it, of course, too. But I think there was like this beautiful, soft rawness. Like, I don't know, like some people with water signs, like say you're a big Scorpio energy, a lot of times their music's a little bit harder, a little bit rougher, a little bit more like, rah, you know, like metal.
Yeah.
Or like death metal, you know. I feel like that's a kind of Scorpio thing. But Pisces energy is a softer water. It's a softer emotion. It's like, it's that kind of thing where it seeps in and it feels like, again, it's just kind of seeping into your soul. And that's corny, but it's true. And I think that's why I really resonated to your music, because number one, I just liked your music and I thought it was beautiful.
Thank you.
I did. I really was like, yeah, this is something I really love. And also, I connected to some of your songs based on what you were saying and based on feelings I've had before too, you know? And I think that there was just a lot of different ones for me. Okay, Baby You Should Know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was big Venus and Pisces in the first house.
Yeah, she's a feeler, that song.
I'd give you the world if I could. I would trade all my worldly possessions for that smile of yours. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's like Pisces energy is also so giving. Just hopeless romantic. Hopelessly, I will give you the world. Literally what you said connected so much for me, because I have felt that way too. Where it's like, I will give you everything, because I love you so much.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing. It also can be, and then the Aquarius part comes in. It's like, wait, Capricorn part comes in like, wait, we need boundaries.
Right. Yeah. Thank God for the amount of Capricorn in my chart.
Yeah, well, see, that's what's great is that you have both and you have the balance, because I think if, let's say you were like a Mercury in Pisces and then it was in the 12th house or something, there would be nothing to keep that structured.
There's no container for that.
Literally. It's just like fog. Like you would just be a puddle on the ground, basically.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but like that was so beautiful. I thought that song, I was like, I get it. I get it. And like, just like the way you expressed your love in that song was so genuine and so true, but just really like, I don't know, you could really feel like how much you love that person at that time.
Yeah.
You know,
what's funny is it's the, at the time the first verse of that song is, talking about moving to the ocean.
yes.
With someone. And I was in a relationship at the time, which ultimately that song kind of like morphed into being about the person I was dating.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how things kind of like take shape organically.
Well, and you have some other ocean stuff in here too, which I thought was really cool. In Somebody Save Me.
Oh, wow.
Which,
deep cut.
oh my God, that song, I'm telling you, I did a deep dive.
Wow.
I don't mess around.
This is so wild. I haven't because I'm like, you heard a lot of these things recently for the first time, and I haven't really engaged with some of these songs in a long time.
That song was also so 12th house Venus Pisces in the first. And I know we're going on a deep dive. This is like looking at your 10 years ago self. So it is kind of a weird thing. And that's kind of, I feel like I was talking about this on another episode, but that's kind of the weird thing about being a musician, is that your music is there.
Yeah.
It's there when you were 24 or 23, it's there when you're, at all these stages in life, and it's like frozen in time.
Yeah.
You are different. That was
Yeah.
10 years ago. I'm sure that you've shifted and evolved and changed in a lot of ways.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you seem like a beautiful person at that time too. But like, I think that with music, it is weird. It's like, oh my God, that's something that it's like looking at a picture of yourself from high school. And you're
Yes. Yes.
Weird.
100%. Well, from the record that you're referencing,
Yeah.
Somebody Save Me, is from this EP that was recorded like live in one day. So like all the instrumentation on that record, except for my vocals and I want to say some keys, everything was recorded like in the moment. And so it really was a snapshot in this way that's so special, I think.
that song was hauntingly beautiful.
Thank you.
There's a couple songs that you have that are, I don't want to, hauntingly is a weird word, but like when I say hauntingly, it means it just literally was so deep. And it was kind of like, whoa, like in that song, Somebody Save Me, I feel it all at once. And then there's some other lines. And then in my crippled state, my thoughts go to the ocean for relief and an escape.
Yeah.
Big ocean vibes.
Big ocean.
With all that
vibes.
Venus and Pisces. And then I know the feeling is fleeting, but there is no end in sight. I mean, this miserable state so simply disguised to mask under laughter a veil and a lie.
Damn, I'm seriously like,
I know it's weird.
Crazy to hear this back because I haven't listened to this song in a long time.
Well, I got in it because the thing is that was so many different aspects of your chart. That was, I mean, here's the thing. I know the feeling is fleeting, but there's no end in sight. I think a Pisces person, sometimes there's this feeling and it feels like this wave and you don't know when it's going to end. And I've had this too. And that's what I connected to with that song. But it is fleeting. But in the moment, you feel like your whole body's taken over. And that's what's so weird. Like when I go to places, sometimes I'm sensitive to the energy of everyone else. And I get taken over a little bit. I have to separate it out and be like, you know what? That's that person's baggage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a Piscean person, I always tell people in readings, it's like you almost have to like, if you're going to a place where you know you're going to get overwhelmed, you have to like protect yourself mentally by like putting yourself in a bubble, because Pisces people are absorbent. They're like a sponge and they're going to take in everything.
Yeah.
So that feeling you were talking about, that like, it seems like there's no end in sight of this feeling. It's like I resonated to that so much.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Feelings they can feel so terrifying in that.
Intense,
and
yeah.
I think like, yeah, just like it's also, yeah, how can you really, I think, embrace a feeling instead of, to me, I'm like, oh, I was fully intellectualizing. Like, to know it's fleeting is kind of like a dismissal of the feeling.
Yes.
Which almost like extends the feeling. But yeah, just
Preach.
to kind of let it happen to you is really, I think, I don't know, it's a great way to find out more about yourself. And it's kind of fun.
I love that. And that's a very mature way to look at it. I have to deal with that too, to be okay with the feelings. And that's kind of Aquarian to kind of look at it and intellectualize it and try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, do we need to? Like, is it okay to just let it happen?
Yeah.
And then work with it? But I think that with the Venus and Pisces, I was like, yeah, I totally get that. And that's why I was like,
Damn.
that song was really good.
Thanks.
And it is weird because I know it's like, yeah, like this is like old, like this was 10 years ago you.
Yeah, yeah.
So the things you were dealing with and the people you were involved with and like everything is like very different. So it is kind of a weird thing to like go back.
Yeah, but I think what's true is like, you know, when I remember that song, there are things of today that I think resonate because the sentiment in there is the same. Like the feelings are the same.
And it was you.
Yeah.
And maybe you've learned how to work with those feelings now in a different way.
Yeah. Thank God. Thank God.
That's why I hate to make it dark, but like that's why a lot of Piscean people have a hard time with like, and they get kind of involved with a lot of drugs and alcohol and escapism because they feel things so much.
Yeah, it's so acute.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's like we feel things from the barista. Like, what? I can't feel their pain. But it's like that's why a lot of musicians do end up trying to find something to mute that, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. And a lot of times they, overdo it because they just don't want to feel it all. They don't want to look at it and see it. And they write beautiful music and they connect and they channel and they write beautiful stuff like you did, but they don't know how to then separate it out and be like, it's okay. Just be okay with it.
Yeah.
So lucky for you, I think you do have that balance, which helps you be able to look at it all and feel the feelings, like you said.
Yeah.
But also like know that it's okay. Like they will pass. Just be with it and like not get over consumed by the emotions.
Yeah.
On the outside, I look steady. I feel stupid and heavy, tired by the stories of my old mind. I go deep and I wonder, what's it all for? Will I ever be whole? It's like, what if I never get better? What if I'm broken forever? If my whole life is fightless, silent, what if this pain don't mean shit? If it's not about a lesson, I'm suffering for fucking nothing.
The other part of your chart, which is more the Cancer part, more water.
Yeah.
So you're
let's
coming
get into it.
Yeah, let's get
I
it.
don't know that much about Cancer or like my Cancer placements. I feel like I hang out with a lot of Leos, Geminis, and Pisces. Those are my like typical friend groups. Not that there aren't other people in my life. And Capricorns and Aquarians.
Okay.
So we're expanding the friend group. But yeah, I'm like, I only know a couple Cancers and they feel like the sweetest sweetie pies.
They are the sweetest sweetie pies.
But I'm like, man, I'm really not giving you enough. Like, I feel like I know so much about my other like astrological buddies, but I'm like, I don't know very much about Cancer.
One is kind of true. Like Aquarius is your buddy. Like that's your sun and your rising.
Yeah.
So like rising is how you present yourself to the world, and the sun is like your deep sense of self. So like I'm glad that you're buddies with those signs because that's important. Virgo moon is like all about your moods and emotions and securities and how you feel safe. So that makes sense. Okay. Virgo, structure, being able to organize, to plan, to have some set of like, again, it's a good balance for, I think, the water in your chart. It's a little earth.
Yeah.
You actually have a lot of earth.
So much earth.
You do actually, because you literally have Saturn, you have the North Node, but just counting planets. So like Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, Uranus, and then that Virgo moon. So 5. That's a lot.
Is there more?
Well, there's other signs, but in terms of the earth, that's what you've got. Yeah. But you've got some strong water elements too. And of course, all that 12th house energy, which is like, I always consider the houses like the landlord.
Oh my God.
And then all the planets that are in it are kind of the tenants.
Yeah.
So like if you have a water house, it's like, okay, that's pretty big energy. That's like the landlord. Like he's ruling kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
But it is interesting with the Cancer stuff because what you have there is you have the South Node, which is all about where you're coming from. That's like kind of the past, your past life. But it's something that, again, if you believe you chose this path, you chose this chart, you're bringing that into this life because there's still some stuff that has to be worked out. There's still some balancing. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of it.
And it doesn't mean I'm not perfect.
It does.
Just kidding.
Big Virgo energy. Doesn't mean I'm not perfect. It just means no. It doesn't mean that it's bad. And like that's what I've learned about working with a South Node is more that it's not about getting rid of it. It's about finding balance with it. It's like, someone that's a little all over the place. And it's like, okay, let's just like kind of like have a little bit of balance. Like you're kind of a lot. Like let's just like take it back a bit. So, you know, with the Cancer energy, that's where you're coming from. And what's fascinating about your chart, and what's also fascinating too, is that it's in the 6th house, which is the Virgo house, which is really interesting.
Oh, wow.
And that's all about health and healing, but in a practical way. And where you're going, your north node is the Pisces house, that 12th house you're talking about, next to your sun and Saturn, which we'll get into. That's a whole nother thing. But 12th house energy, like they're both of service. 6th house is of service. 12th house is of service. But they're being of service in different ways. 6th house is more practical. What can I do for you in a practical way to help you right now?
Yeah.
12th house is more in a intuitive, ethereal way. How can I be of service to help you in your healing, but in a more emotional way?
Yeah.
And I think your music is that healing by being able to express your own stuff. Like I just said about that one song, it totally connected to me, and it was healing to hear that.
Yeah.
The way you interpreted your feelings was similar to mine, but it was healing to hear it.
I think that's something that, whether it's like in a song or just like in a conversation, I can feel sometimes so alone in my feelings that I think like expressing them is like an act of hope, you know?
Yeah.
And like my experience of talking with other people or listening to music is similar to what you're saying, of just like, oh my God, it's so nice to feel like I'm not alone out here, you know, that like, oh, I'm not the only person feeling this way. Like it can feel so extra painful when you feel isolated in the stuff that you're going through. But yeah, that's really sweet to hear.
That's a beautiful thing. And I think we all need that to feel connected to something.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about Pisces, is that it's the all around being. It is bodiless. It is the universe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
It's pretty up there. That's what I mean. It's like the highest of the houses and of the signs. It is the most evolved because it is not really, it's egoless. It has no ego. It is about connecting all around us.
Yeah.
And love and faith and hope.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
But that's where you're going. And it's in Capricorn, which is, again, that combination of like beauty and service and helping people, but doing it in a way where you feel really empowered. Mm-hmm. You feel empowered. You are strong. You persevere. It's that goat going up the mountain. That's Capricorn. Mm-hmm. Go one step at a time. And I think in Cancer, where you're coming from, sometimes Cancers can feel helpless and a little bit passive aggressive. Sorry, Cancers. But hey, we all have our own things. Every sign has its own goods and bads, or not goods and bads, but challenges, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they feel like a victim.
Oh.
Is the hard part about a Cancer, is I think sometimes they feel powerless. They feel like a victim. And that's very opposite of Capricorn. Capricorn is strong. Capricorn is self-reliant.
Yeah, we're getting it done.
We're getting it done.
We're doing it.
We are being of service.
Yeah.
We are helping people. We are intuiting. We are connecting. But we're doing it in a way where it's not like we're being a martyr. Like we are strong in this.
Yeah.
So I was curious. We talked so much about the evolution of you as a person, coming from the South Node in Cancer next to that Cheuvront, and then moving towards that North Node in Capricorn in the 12th house. I'm curious how your music has also evolved in these last 10 years since your beginning, since the first albums you put out.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked a little bit about like the channeling of it in my like late teens, early 20s. There wasn't a lot of like perfection in there. But I think like as I continued to write and perform, I started to like sort of get more and more perfectionistic about it. Like eyes on me, wanting to like create things to generate more opportunity, and kind of like geared me towards perfection a little bit maybe not perfection, but just like perfection meets like craftsmanship. Like I think I was more in my head than like in my body when I was writing. And I think there, like one of the songs that feels like a marriage of the two things, like the channeling and the craftsmanship, is the song The High Wire that I released in 2021. The chorus came to me just like pure, unadulterated, out of the blue.
You just channeled it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really had to consider the verses and like what was gonna hold up the rest of the song, because I loved the chorus so much. So I kind of like tinkered and did all that stuff. But now I feel like I haven't put anything into the world in a long time. That single was like one song in the past like 9 or 10 years. And I feel like right now I'm really throwing perfection to the curb. And I'm just like, it sounds maybe a little strange, but I have to constantly remind myself like it doesn't need to be pretty. Like I don't have to craft the perfect like container to express this feeling. Like it's counteracting my ability to express. Like the effort to like say it right is not helping me get my point across. And I feel like my songs now, I'm working on some in the studio, which is exciting. They're very lyrically plain, I think, in a way that's like really honest. And I don't know, I'm just excited to sort of be in this new realm of like,
that's exciting.
What's gonna how's this gonna play or whatever.
Honestly, it seems like you're just kind of like trusting yourself more, which is great. And I think it's hard to do that sometimes when you know, again, Cancer South Node and Pisces energy. It's like, how do I trust myself? It's like, am I, you know, doing this right? But I think you are trusting yourself and your intuition and how you feel and like just putting it out into the world. It's like nothing bad's going to happen. Like it's all good. You know what I mean? No matter what you put out, it's all good. It's an expression. And then maybe in another 5 years, it'll be different. You know, it's like, this is where you're at now. And like being able to channel your, like your music, your intuition of what you want to put out there and like share with people is great, you know, and who knows? So I think that's really exciting that you're, you know, coming to that place. And I know I'm very excited to hear your new music since I've like gotten so immersed in your old stuff. And I think it's beautiful, but I'm excited to hear kind of like your new version of that and like where you're at now with that. So that's very exciting.
It's going to be good.
So what's your relationship like with home in general? Like either your own home or home growing up? I was also curious because again, like I was saying, the sign that's on the cusp of the house, like the 4th house is ruled by Cancer, but in your chart specifically, because you are an Aquarius rising, it is ruled by Gemini, and you have Mars right on that nadir, like right on that like cusp of the 4th. And so with Gemini being on the 4th, I would imagine home could have been a little inconsistent. It could have been a little bit, Gemini is a mutable air sign. So it's a little bit all over the place. It's a little bit chaotic. It's a lot of energy all at once, doing a million things. And again, having the Mars right there could potentially bring up things about a little bit of tension. Mars is like kind of a hot planet. And he's got a lot of action, a lot of energy, but also the downside of Mars can be a little bit more like caustic or agitated, frustration, anger, that kind of stuff. In extreme cases like violence, but not always. So I was curious, and, you know, obviously say what you want, but I was curious your relationship to home and maybe what what maybe you had to work through a little bit with that South Node and Cancer, and if you did have to work through anything within home.
I think, like in terms of the Gemini of it all, the inconsistency resonates because I definitely moved around a lot as a kid. I was in a different house every 2 years pretty much. And so inconsistency was a big just kind of like marker of my upbringing, just in terms of like moving around, moving schools a lot. What struck me when you were talking about Cancer feeling and like its placement, feeling like a little powerless in its like emotions and stuff, and then the North Node you said in Capricorn, feeling empowered, is I think for a long time like those things felt in conflict because I felt so confused about how to relate emotionally in the world. Maybe that's a home-born thing too. But I think like having emotions felt such like a powerless experience. Like I just was just like, I'm having this thing and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to express it. And it feels like to me now, like where I'm at is like, I have so much power in recognizing my feelings. And like, I have so much power in my ability to like, or maybe not having power, but feeling empowered in the way that I get to express myself. And so I think, the inconsistencies maybe of moving around and things like that, were, potentially a part of that. But yeah, the Cancer to Capricorn, nodes, I think.
I mean, what you said about feeling power in your emotions, I think is such a perfect way to describe the North Node in Capricorn in the 12th house.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
They're like a real indicator. Like for me, like it's like where I can they're like, my emotions can be a touchstone of my own place in a context. And when my context as a kid was like constantly shifting, and then I didn't have the tools of like navigating my feelings or whatever, that powerlessness definitely was a lot to deal with.
That's a lot. Yeah. And it sounds like maybe, it sounds like maybe your parents didn't know how to do that.
Yeah. We're a bunch of Irish people. Like we're not feelers. I think it's very like we got other things we got to do. And like, I think there's, some value in that, but that balance is crucial for it to all kind of like work. I feel like, yes, the feeling ashamed about my feelings, I like have noticed in my songwriting, but one of the things that I think, despite all of the, despite not necessarily feeling like I could just talk to a friend about how I feel, I was like consistently encouraged in art, like growing up, And so I feel like there's this like, it was like this narrow beam of light, that just like I had to kind of like orient myself to so that I could get some of those feelings out. Like, I feel like, inconsistency in childhood, that's like hard. There's like, emotions are hard for everybody, but I was really fortunate in how encouraged I was in like all of
that was a gift.
Yeah, like for sure. Whether it was music or like visual art or whatever, if it was coming from myself or even like the people around me, it just felt like art was always a place that I could explore like my internal landscape without feeling afraid, I guess.
And maybe that was something that, was a gift in terms of like your parents were like, this is an avenue. Maybe, it's like, again, like sometimes people, like parents are not perfect. they learn things from their parents, and sometimes they don't have the tools. Literally,
we're
tools.
all just out here.
We're all just out here. No one gives us a roadmap.
No
one tells us like how to do things.
I was so convinced
Yeah.
that there was a roadmap that everybody got.
No one gets it.
But nobody gets it.
No.
We have to write our own.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing about a chart is that it's not a total roadmap, as in like, it's not going to tell you what you have to do, but it's a little bit of a landscape of like, this is what you're working with. This is the direction that, you might be led to. This is where you're coming from. And this is a little bit of like, here's a landscape. And I remember when I had my first reading as like a kid.
How old were you?
Like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I grew up in a very holistic household where, we connected a lot to our emotions, and that was a real gift. And my mom and dad were very like, being like, we always had the phrase like, it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to be mean. And that was something that like, I grew up in an alternative school, like very like,
wow, I love this.
It was very cool. And my mom, we had our astrologer who's Rio Lesky. I mention him like every episode because he's great. And he's wonderful. And he's been doing astrology for like 40 years. I mean, he's incredible.
Wow.
And he did like my first reading for me as a child. And I just remember learning so many things and being like, not totally getting what it meant. Yeah. Like when people come in for a reading, they don't totally get what everything means, but like you take away stuff and you're like, whoa. Like I remember, the Mercury retrograde I have in my chart, and I had a speech delay, like, and Mercury's all about communication. And then like, what? Right. I know. And that's what's amazing about it is I had to work for it, and like,
look at you now, voice actress extraordinaire.
And that was the funny irony of it, was that like doing that work helped me come to the place I was meant to go to. And doing this podcast, I believe, is part of that too. So it's like these things in our chart just help us learn.
Wow.
Like, okay, like don't be afraid. It's okay you have a Mercury retrograde in your chart, like natally. It's fine. You just might have to do a little bit of work for that, and it's okay that, you have Saturn next to your sun. You just might have to like do a little bit of work of learning how to, I think that's like another thing that's really interesting is because the 12th house is so behind the scenes. I could imagine there's a part of you that's sometimes shy, and having Saturn next to your sun can be a very like shy aspect, very like indrawn, very like kind of being scared to let yourself out.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And that's like, but that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with having Saturn next to your sun. You just like, this is a lifetime where you're learning how to work with that, and not letting that hold you back. Like you're getting out your feelings, your emotions. You don't have to repress that. Like you are letting it out through your music. So yeah. So, we'll have to talk again about some of the other stuff because there's other songs and there's other things I want to talk to you about. But I also want to get to your music because I'm like so excited to hear about it. So before we do that, I want to ask, like, where can people find you? Are you doing shows? Like, what's your next steps?
I'm currently working on a record right now with my friend Jen Champion, famous Pisces. So Jen and I are working on this record. I'm not sure exactly when it'll be out, but it will be out imminently. That's and if anybody wants to follow along, you can find me on Instagram. At Merle_Hazard. I'm really excited about this record. So I would encourage people to come check it out when it's available. And then I have a show at the Lyric Hyperion on December 8th. Ooh, if anybody wants to come.
That's a really great venue
in
so
Los
cute. Angeles. So you got to come to LA, but
worth it.
It is. No, it's a really fun venue. And that sounds so exciting. I'm just like, I can't wait to hear your new record.
I can't wait to share it with everyone.
Oh my God.
It's been really healing, and like I'm really excited about it because, I haven't released a lot of stuff in the past 10 years. I think I put out 2 singles or something like that.
I love The High Wire.
Thank you.
And that was 2021, I know, right? Mm-hmm. So have you released anything since? Or no, right?
No.
Okay.
And what's funny is that song was recorded in 2017. So it took me a long time. I just have felt, I don't know, maybe it's the Saturnian cramp or whatever.
Yeah,
but
that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, just like
cramp.
How do I put things out there? And I just feel like I'm in a different place of like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make art and make more art with it, you know.
I love that. Well, and I'm sure with that Virgo moon, it's a little bit hard not to be like a perfectionist. Are you a perfectionist with your music?
I think I have been in the past, but maybe related to the chart reading. I think like in the past, I was kind of like hoping to capture or like replicate like a sound. And the fun and exciting thing about the thing that Jen and I are making, like this little record, is I think we're really chasing a feeling. Like we're trying to capture a feeling. And that, I don't know, it just feels like it really relates to what we're talking about today. But
the feeling and the empowerment of the feeling.
Yeah. And I think for that reason, it just feels like a little like there is no perfection in your feelings. And so you can't, you know, it's harder to like put perfection on what we're doing right now, which is incredibly liberating.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you have just embraced your path and embraced.
Thank you. I'll say sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah,
like the 12th house stuff, I'm like, yeah, we do be having a hard time
it's not
sometimes.
easy, but it sounds like you are really aware. You're working with it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you are on your way and you're feeling more empowered in your music and in your emotions and in all of it. Like, so congrats.
Thank you.
You are leveling up.
Thank you.
Next lifetime, you won't have to deal with any of this.
Oh, thank God.
That's the goal. But I was curious if you have any questions for me now that, you know, we've kind of gone over some stuff. Do you have any questions about your chart, or how do you feel in general? Do you feel like you resonated to what we talked about?
I mean, there were definitely some things that you like hit very acutely.
Yeah.
And it was kind of helpful to frame the 12th house in Pisces as kind of this fog, because I think like I've been interpreting it through like a Capricorn. Like I should know how to work with this stuff. And now it's like, oh, it's much more elusive than I even originally thought. Which makes sense as to why it's like sometimes it's just really heavy to move or something, you know?
Sometimes it feels like the fog is just like so much.
It's
like you
epic.
can't like literally move through it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like in real life, it's hard to move through fog.
And it's,
sometimes.
like the direction feels impossible to find.
It can be very directionless.
Yeah.
So again, it's good you have that Capricorn to kind of help you find the path.
Yeah.
And like give a little bit of like box, like a little structure.
Yeah.
To the boundaryless of it all. Well, thank you so much. This was like such a fun, I don't know, just like conversation on a whole nother level.
Thanks for having me. This was really cool. And I learned so much. This was very helpful.
I'm glad. Well, from one Piscean person to another Piscean person, I'm with you. I feel you. It is not easy, but we are also like beautiful ethereal creatures. So,
and that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. So I'm glad we're doing the thing. And thank you everyone for listening. It has been so much fun talking to you. Make sure you check out our Instagram. Make sure you check out the episode on Spotify, Apple Music. Please review it. Please rate us. Make sure you comment, because we love to get feedback. And we just want to like keep growing this little baby. So, you know, thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you on the flip side. Now we're going to hear MaryLeigh play Not a Home, and then get a special sneak preview of Intrusive Thoughts, premiering on her new record coming soon. Find her on Instagram at Merle_Hazard. And for folks in the LA area, make sure you get your tickets to see her at the Lyric Hyperion on December 8th. Here we go.
Starting to sound like the floor creaks. I never thought I'd empathize with the furniture in the rain that you leave outside. drenched in the hallway. Our toilet that runs all day. I am the crack in the window pane, a big old break that became a part of the landscape. Ooh, honey, what do you see? I look you dead in the eye. You look right through me. But baby, why don't you tell me, what do I do? I know I become a house, not a home for you. Alright, what if you came home 5 o'clock, put up in the driveway, get your drops, in front of your eyes is a blaze, the shitty little broken home that we made. Ooh, honey, what do you see? I look you dead in the eye. You look right through me. But baby, why don't you tell me, what do I do? I know I become a house, not a home for you. I know I become a house, not a home for you. I know I become a house, not a home. I never feel right, like my body's on too tight. I can never move how I really want to. On the outside, I look steady. I feel stupid and heavy, tired by the stories of my old mind. I go deep and I wonder, what's it all for? Will I ever be whole? It's like, what if I never get better? What if I'm broken forever? If my whole life is fightless, silent, what if this pain don't mean shit? If it's not about a lesson, I'm suffering for fucking nothing. I don't get how everybody's got this down, living how everybody wants them to. I wasn't built for the hustle of this world, light and free, that's how I wanna be. What if I never get better? What if I'm broken forever? If my whole life is fightless, silent, what if this pain don't mean shit? If it's not about a lesson, I'm suffering for fucking nothing. Maybe I'm weird, fucking weird. Maybe I'm weird and don't belong here. Maybe I'm weird, fucking weird. Maybe that's fine. If I never get better, if I'm broken forever, maybe my life will be something vibrant. If the pain's just part of it, some beautiful progression, my suffering won't be for nothing. progression, something vibrant, some beautiful progression, some beautiful progression.
Thanks for listening. This podcast has been a LiliRose production, created by Liana Bassior, produced by Alana Cheuvront, Juliana Hartman, and Danielle Marascalchi.